Grand Marais Public Utilities Commission, June 5th, 2019. Looks like all commissioners are here.
George, if you could just swing that towards you.
You betcha. And what do we think about the consent agenda?
I'd move to approve it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I would like to add 4 things to the agenda. I'd like to revisit the Evalyn Larson's water discharge or charge for the excessive water use on that particular bill. I'd like to talk again about the night sky issue. And I'd like to talk about the opt-out policy for customers who don't want smart meters. And the climate action plan and what we're going to do about that. All 4 of those things I'm happy to revisit more seriously later, but I just wanted to get those on the radar
I
screen.
saw that, and I can send that email out, asked that where you'd asked to have that put on the agenda.
Mhm. So maybe we could kind of add those onto the end?
Yeah, I think we can add them on. I mean, I think as a discussion item, obviously there's not going to be any action since it weren't on the agenda at this point, but just.
Okay, and that's not a rule necessarily, but that would be your preference, and I'm fine with that.
Well, I mean, I think it's important that we not add items to the agenda the day of the meeting
Mhm.
where we haven't had any opportunity to do any research or ask any questions if we have any, nor is the public either. I mean, it's not just us, it's the public too that.
Okay.
You know, I think we have a public responsibility to make sure the public has adequate time to look at these things. But I don't have any problem talking about those items as long as we're, you know, not taking action on any of those.
Okay, sound good? I'm good with that too. So I think I have a motion and a second, so all in favor to approve the consent agenda? Aye?
Aye.
Passes. Tom, you would like some new wastewater pumps.
It's me and money, man. You see me when I need money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of new pumps.
Well, they've been old, and as you can see, the two difference of the two different companies is quite substantial. I know when we bought the other one about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we bought that Minnesota pump one, and it seems to be working fine, and it was, you know, the price was in, so after a year of that, it's, I'm comfortable having that recommendation, that one again, versus like the factory 1M ones that came with the plant. So, and they're like their big raw water pumps. Every piece of sewer that comes in there has to go through one of these 3 pumps. The plant itself is designed to only need 2, but in high flows, I can run 3. I've changed the mode of the plant. I can run 3 during high flows. Normal, we only need 1. Under normal flow, you never need more than 1. So like right now, we're just running 1, even though our flowers are up. Like this month, we went in through 25 million gallons came in the plant. Last month, 25 million gallons. So actually, we're even ahead of 2 years ago when we had that real high year.
And
But,
that's because of the wet weather?
Yeah, a lot of it. But, you know, we got one that's borrowed and one that's not even there. So if we get a heavy rain or another down, we're critical need. So we'd have to close the valves and let everything just go out in the lake. So,
That would be good.
no, tried to be good.
So these quotes are for 2 pumps.
Yeah, 2 pumps
Okay.
each, yeah.
Why do you think the price difference was so much between the 2 firms? I mean, you know, obviously you worry that there's a big quality difference.
Flight, I think, is German. And I think the other one, the ABA, I think is actually a part USA pump, so I don't know.
Okay, but you feel that even, I mean, the cheaper pump is still
Yeah.
of a quality that you'd be happy with.
Yeah, we ran one for 2 years and it seems to be working great, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that kind of background, I mean, if we've already have the same pump and we've not had any problems with it, I think that it's kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and buy those pumps again, especially when you're gonna have the pumps, have the same pumps and your servicing is the same and all your operations are the same.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So I would make a motion to approve the purchase of the pumps from Minnesota Pump Works, the amount of $20,872.30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. I was gonna skip out and let you guys finish your other part of your agenda, but I could stay and listen to any questions you have about the Evalyn Larson's water thing. If you have any questions, because I was there, I know what happened, I saw it and I helped him fix it, so.
You want to move that up and do it now?
Yes.
You said you had some issues with it, or, I mean, I don't know what came to the fore of the board, because I missed the last.
Well, we talked about whether she had asked to have her bill reduced, just because it was an accidental discharge. And
Yep.
we had decided that we didn't want to set the precedent of doing that, and that we would go ahead with the reducing the sewer part of the
Oh.
bill, but not the water part.
Which
And
we've already done.
Okay. I mean, my thing is the sewer was a legitimate deal, the water is still a political issue, which I would say no.
So the
Water loss.
commission earlier did allow staff to just go ahead and do the
Yep.
sewer forgiveness when we can verify that
Yep.
it hasn't gone into the sewer, so we don't bring that to the board anymore.
Okay.
Her request was to have her water bill forgiven as well.
And didn't we decide that we would at least waive her late fee, though,
Yeah.
as some kind
Yeah.
of concession?
And negotiate a long-term payment
Yeah.
plan
Yeah.
so that, trying to reduce that burden.
Yep.
So that was what we agreed to
No,
at our
I'm
last
comfortable with all
meeting.
that, but to me, the water's the water, we have to pay for it, and how you guys want to deal with it. My thing is, I try and give no water away to anybody.
what is our actual cost, on a per gallon basis, or what do you charge?
1,000 gallons.
1,000
What
gallons?
we're charging for 1,000 for water, I was around $6.
$6?
Yeah.
But no, what is your actual cost?
It depends, well, you got variable and fixed, it depends how you want to break it down, so it's,
We had this conversation before,
This would be the variable cost, so,
but we don't collect our variable costs with our variable rate.
of course.
Our variable costs are pretty small,
Yes, exactly.
but we're a break-even enterprise, right? So we charge what it costs us to operate the enterprise.
Yes, and that is divided among, there's fixed costs are in the fixed charge.
But
And
not
there's
nearly
also-
all of them.
And there's also fixed cost within the water charge, the per gallon charge.
Yeah, so if you want to design a rate system where the actual variable charges are all that we charge for the usage fee,
No one's saying that.
well, but I would recommend that you don't do it on a piecemeal basis. You either do it all the time or you don't do it.
Right, no, I wouldn't go about it that way. My feeling on this is just that, Evalyn pays her share of the system through her monthly bill, and you can average that out, whatever her average monthly usage is, that she's paying her share of that system. So we have an accidental discharge, and that really costs everybody very little. So she's still paying her share of the system.
How do you determine what her share is?
Well, just through our normal rate system,
Which is based on volume.
yeah. And so, but if this is, and so arguably, again, every month, she's paying her share through her fixed cost, her fixed charge, and her per gallon fee, right? So we have an accidental discharge that costs us really very little. So what are we gaining by charging her, a lot of money just for some water, when really she's still paying her share of the system?
Was it accidental?
it was a
Well,
dog.
she thought it was.
I believe Evalyn. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I know her, I take her word for it,
Yeah.
but we don't know. And take Evalyn out of the picture and put random person that we've never heard of into the picture. They say it's accidental, but
Yeah.
it's actually the contractor that took 10,000 gallons to go water the sod that they're supposed to be watering. Same situation?
Boy, does that ever happen?
Sure, all
Yeah,
the time.
we chased one down.
Or pipe breaks.
And we consider
you
it
know,
theft
Yeah.
when that happens. When someone takes water and doesn't pay for it. So, I think you can't mix
And I,
the system that you're trying to use for Evalyn and the system that we use every other case. You've got to go one way or the other.
yeah, I was just thinking you could do something like you could say an accidental discharge would be defined by, you take the last 12 months of usage and say if there's an obvious spike in usage, you know, something that deviates from that average.
It happens more often than you think.
Yeah?
A new garden is planted, a yard is reworked, you know, a hot tub is filled. I mean, there's whatever, or even just I left the faucet on, and it's more often than you think that there's a deviation.
Well, right. I guess
Well,
what.
I mean-
Go ahead.
Excuse me.
No, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, I think, I mean, I know what you're getting at, because I, was thinking kind of the same thing, that we want to be reasonable, and we don't want to penalize somebody for, that much for an accidental thing with their dog.
That really doesn't cost us much. That's kind of what's getting at me.
I think that is a mistake to communicate to people, that water really doesn't cost us that much. We charge rates based on what it actually costs us to produce.
Yeah,
So to say that most of that rate is not paying for the water is not a good message to send. All of that rate is paying for the water. There is no extra, right? We collect all the money that we need to produce and operate our water treatment and distribution system. And we don't collect more than we need. So
Sure. Yeah, I
if-
get that.
If we're saying that this bill is too high, why is everybody else's bill right? Because it's the same situation. Well, the water didn't really cost us that much. So how do we explain to people, how do we divine what their share is if it's not by volume?
Well, and I think, George's point, and I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, in fact, I don't think I agree with it, is that taking the water from the lake and getting it to somebody's faucet doesn't really cost us much. Well, the fact is, it does cost us everything that it takes to make that happen.
And we charge.
The wa-
We charge for that.
Right.
In a combination of
Because-
ways.
Because
Yep.
that's
Yeah, I get
that's
that,
what it
Tom.
costs to bring that water from point A to point B. So to say that it doesn't cost us that much, that is what it costs us to do that.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Would it be possible for us, either Mike or us as, commissioners, to do some research on, do other municipalities have policies on this particular issue that we could look at and see how other places handle it? I mean, maybe there's somebody has something in place that would make sense to us.
You ever run across an accidental discharge policy? Okay.
We can look.
I mean, I guess my thought was that there could be a cap on kind of the damages, so to speak. Like if you had something happen like this, that was obviously out of sync with your normal monthly bill, that $300 or something.
Well, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think that it would have to come along with someone coming to us and being able to show us pretty strongly that it was an accident and that they didn't just get a hot tub or water a garden or whatever. Because I understand what you're saying. I mean, you can make your water bill spike pretty fast with those things. That happened to a friend of mine, and they didn't know, and I mean, they paid it, but they were like, wow, it was really expensive to water those trees.
And the hose outside running is the one that ends up with this huge number. The leaky toilet is maybe the more common or some sort of interior plumbing issue,
Mm-hmm.
is that accidental too? Like to not maintain your plumbing equipment, and then you're using more water than you need normally? So does the policy cover something like that as well?
Okay. All right, well, I think I've heard enough. I'm satisfied, thank you.
There might be another way to help customers, but it's an insurance program. And I don't know if it'll help leaks, but it will also, it's designed, I'm not exactly sure how it runs, but it is sponsored, I know, by Minnesota Rural Water Association, and it will help. There's a couple different policies. I think the city collects money from people, and it goes into like an insurance fund, and it helps for, let's say if you break your water line,
Yeah?
you'll pay to get it fixed instead of your own pocket, that kind of stuff. But it would be some administrative work for the city, I think, to manage it, but it's handled by a different company, like an insurance company.
That might be helpful to learn a little bit more about, because, I mean, when we've seen these things come before us, generally it's because people claim that there's some kind of accidental
Yeah.
issue, whether it's a frozen pipe that discharges, or, I mean, some kind of an event that happens that, that people aren't aware of, I mean, this thing with Evalyn, it was going on for a period of time, and she was not aware of it, and, I mean, who would think to go out and check an outside faucet in the wintertime to see if it had been turned on? It's not something you're likely doing. If you break a pipe and something's going down into a crawl space that you're not aware of happening, which we've seen come before us also, maybe these are the kind of things that, would be a general benefit from if that kind of an insurance policy could, in fact, offset some of those.
Yeah, I'll bring in the
accidental
information I can
things.
find, and if you want to proceed further, you can have someone look into it, so.
The AMI system that we're installing is also really going to deal with this. It's going to be a few more years before water meters are going to be automated. But the read now is we go once a month and look and see what the number is. And when those meters are in place, they're capable of reading as often as a person wants them to be read. So they're not as, the electric meters, we can actually just check in anytime we want because they're powered by the electric system. The water meters are battery operated, so we don't have them check in as often, but you can certainly have a daily check, for instance, that if there's a spike, it sends us a report. We check in with that person. So
That would make sense. I mean, the
That would
value
help.
of that kind of a system is that you could get notified that something was going on that's unusual and get a much more immediate response.
So is what you're saying that it would notify the city, and so, like, you would call me and say, hey, we see a huge spike in your water bill, are
Yeah.
you watering some new trees? And I would either say yes, or, oh no, I better go look in my basement?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that could be useful.
Is that- Jan used to do that, when she would see readings and she would say, well, there's something unusual about this. I know this owner
Yeah.
is not present,
Yeah, she would.
they're not even here, and she would call them and say, are you aware of any unusual water use going on in your property? We just got our meter reading results back, and there's something happening here that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah, we still do that. And it's, our first step was
Monthly.
check in. I mean, that's all Jan ever had was monthly reads, right? The first thing we do is check in with the meter reader and make sure that the number's right. And then if it is, then we need to start investigating and contacting the homeowners. So being able to do that more often than monthly will be the best insurance, because a leaky hose for a month, you can see how much water it can put out. But just a day, not so bad.
What was the water bill, total usage for that month?
Like
$1,500.
$1,500 is a lot.
Heck, I think it was a couple 100,000 gallons.
Yeah. I remember 5,000 through a toilet once in a day.
I mean, that amount of water is what we produce in a day for the entire city. So it's not insignificant.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
We want to proceed with open meeting law.
If you wouldn't mind, have a brief presentation for you.
That would be awesome.
We weren't actually planning on keeping this regular meeting because you've met so recently, but since Tom needed some help, why not? And then this item actually is something that the league just has, so it doesn't require any prep. We're going to borrow their slideshow, and
Have you already seen this, Tim?
No, I don't think so.
shouldn't be any news for you, Tim, but
No,
we'll
I
see.
don't.
So we'll skip
When I
ahead.
see George's emails, I just ignore them.
Right. So, what's your goal? Comply with the open meeting law. We're going to understand the basic requirements, recognize the problem areas. That's the biggest part, right? And know where to get answers. You know where to get answers. Right here. You have to get me one of those mics I can wear. We'll skip this. We'll skip this. Because I hope you understand why we have an open meeting law. But here's the basic requirements. We have to provide advance notice of all of our meetings and hold meetings that are open to the public. There's a lot of terms that require definition here to really understand what's going on.
You know, and that's one of the reasons why I raised this question about adding these items to the agenda, is just that this advance notice of the meetings. There's also an expectation that the public knows what you're going to be discussing at that meeting, rather than sliding it in after the agenda goes out. And, you know, just the perception of that is that, you know, we're trying to do something that, or it could be that we're trying to do something that avoids that public scrutiny. Yeah.
This presentation has a bunch of these what ifs. You're not really supposed to know the answer to this yet, but if you provide advance notice of a meeting, but it's in a private office 20 miles outside the school district, does it satisfy the basic requirements? I hope you understand. No, it doesn't, because it's not a public place if it's a private office. And in this case, they actually say it also has to be within the district. What is a meeting? A quorum or more. And for the three of you, that means any two of you is a quorum. That makes it extra tricky. Of a public body governed by the open meeting law, and the Utilities Commission is absolutely a public body governed by the open meeting law. Where the public body discusses, decides, or receives information on issues relating to official business. Discuss official business, receive information about official business. When we've got a group of 5 on a board, and one of them emails somebody else just to tell them something, you didn't get the quorum. But you did receive information about official business, or potentially you could say it was even discussed. When there's just 3 of you, anytime one of you sends somebody else anything that's related to official business, you've probably created a meeting. How about this case? Is this a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, they got you good. No.
No?
Because they didn't talk about,
Oh,
they did not discuss, decide, or receive information on issues relating to official business. Team building to improve trust relationships, communications is not official business. Weird.
yeah, because it's hard to do team building about business without talking about your business.
So here's their little caveat. You have to have avoided even incidental discussions.
Yeah,
Right.
And that doesn't happen.
no.
City Council, EDA, every board we have. So, council member attends a committee meeting, like they may come to a PUC meeting, right? The PUC provided notice of the meeting, but we didn't notice that it was potentially a council meeting. And is this a violation? There's a quorum of the council. We have 2 city councilors come, and then there's Tim. So now there's 3 of them in the room. Those 2 sit in the chairs and observe the meeting. The 3 of you conduct Utilities Commission business. Did we break the open meeting?
I'm going to say no.
He's getting good at this. If they don't participate, why are they here if they're not going to participate? So usually when we know a bunch of city councilors are going to come to the meeting, we post it as a council meeting just so that they can participate. Penalties. Here's the tricky part. These penalties, reasonable fees up to $13,000, a $300 fine. That's a personal criminal liability, $300 fine. We can't pay it on your behalf. You have to pay it. And you may have to forfeit office if you intentionally, willfully violate. And please just don't, because it's going to cost us a lot of money. There are cities that have had issues with this, and the leagues stopped insuring them or jacked up their deductible to a few $100,000 because it's going to be expensive if we don't follow the rules.
Could you go back, please? What's DPO?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Um,
okay, I just didn't know if it was something I was supposed to know. And I don't?
I'm sure it's a state
Okay,
data practices official. That might be
Oh.
me, actually.
okay.
City clerk's role will skip. Notice requirements, regular, special, emergency, continue, close. Those are the 5 categories of meetings. Regular meeting, we have your regular meeting schedule posted. It's the first Wednesday of every month at 3 o'clock in this room. That's posted for the year. At a regular meeting, you can add things to the agenda if you want to. There's no rule against it.
You can add them at the time.
The agenda is not fixed. There's an expectation that if the public wants to follow with your business, that they need to be here.
Okay.
Or, we make it available to them, live stream or after the fact. Now, legal requirement versus, again, what's the purpose of this, is to try and provide people with notice so that they can effectively participate. Special meeting. Now, last month was a special meeting because we had it out of sync with the regular schedule. And you cannot add things to that agenda. When we post the different time or place for a regular meeting, we also have to post the purpose of the meeting, which means what's on the agenda, and we can't deviate from that.
Okay.
And it requires 3 days posted notice, not including holidays and non-business days. So if you want to meet on a Thursday, you got to post it on a Monday. If you want to meet on a Monday, you got to post it on a Wednesday, that kind of thing. Take a look at this. We're mixing it up now. They've got 2 types of meetings. They have a special meeting and a regular meeting. Regular meeting was posted.
But wasn't a closed meeting a different kind yet?
I think we still have, still a,
All right, let's go back a second.
Notice of a closed meeting is necessary.
Special meeting is a meeting that occurs at a different time or place from a regular meeting. A half hour before your regular meeting is a different time.
A closed meeting is a special.
We'll talk about
type of
closing
special-
meetings,
special
but in this
meeting.
case, this is a special meeting. You can close a regular meeting too. But this special meeting did not get proper notice, so it's a different time. They should have provided notice for that special meeting. Don't count the first day, don't count the last. Don't worry about this. We got this. If you want a special meeting, you tell us, and we'll figure out when it can be held.
Okay.
Emergency meeting, you're not likely going to hold them.
Okay.
The power plant blows up. You probably still don't need an emergency meeting.
Sewer plant backs up.
Sewer plant,
Yeah.
and suddenly we need to authorize the expenditure of $200,000. We might need you to do it in an hour. And then the emergency meeting requires immediate consideration. You don't have to post it at all. We'll call the newspaper and WTAP and say, hey, there's an emergency, we're holding a meeting, if you can make it. Or, we'll also just make it available to people. I've never had to do one of these. I'm really happy about that. I'd like that to be the case forever. Continued meetings. Okay, you didn't finish today, but you have things on your agenda and you don't want to wait for your next meeting. You can temporarily suspend, meaning you're adjourning this meeting to a different time and place. And because this meeting was posted and people had an opportunity to be here when you made that decision and they can witness it, then you're not violating the open meeting law by continuing this meeting at a different time and place.
Probably don't do many of those either.
We do them from time to time.
At the council?
Yeah, I think even these boards have done them before, where there's business that needs to get done, but we're just not going to be able to get it done. Or we get to a stopping point and think, we need to wait 2 days for an answer to a question, but we don't want to wait 2 weeks, and we don't want to post a special meeting. And there's more circumstances there. Closed meetings. It's very unlikely that you're going to have to close a meeting, but there are a few reasons why that might happen. Same notice requirements, whether it's special or regular doesn't matter. You must close to talk about misconduct allegations and certain non-public data, and that's a very complicated area, what's public and not public, so rely on us to tell you that. Electric data is generally not public. Most of the time when we talk about it, you don't have to close the meeting to talk about it, because we can redact the information that would make it confidential or private. You may close for those other purposes. The only one that's really likely to happen for you is if you wanted to conduct performance reviews, which you don't really need to do, or if we've got some sort of attorney-client privilege issue, which has happened from time to time. In any case, anytime we close a meeting, we have the city attorney involved. So they say, yes, you can legally close. They prepare a script for the chair of the whichever the meeting is, because you've got some obligations before you close the meeting to say why you're closing it, what your authority is to close it, what you're going to discuss when it's closed. And so we just have the city attorney involved. So you won't have to worry about this either, because you won't close any meetings unless we've prepared for it. Just said all that. Okay, common issues. Social gatherings. This happens in small towns a lot. You're going to end up at the WTIP party together. And what's going on? There's a quorum of you absolutely there. Is it a violation? Not if you don't talk about official business. So this really requires your own discipline to, whenever you see each other, not talk about utilities business. Before and after meetings, this is super, super common, particularly after, because people don't always say what they want to say, or they didn't think of it when it was relevant when the pressure was on. Suddenly the pressure's off, everybody's leaving, you got this thought that occurs to you, and now you want to talk about it. Well, too late, too bad. You got to wait until the next regular meeting. If it's crucial, you just have to deal with it, then ask us to schedule a special meeting and we can do that and you can revisit it. But if you're just sitting around here, and we shoo people out all the time because they want to talk about stuff, and it's likely a violation of the open meeting law. Serial meetings. Now this is a fun one. You don't have to worry so much about it when there's just the three of you, because 1-to-1 and you've already created a quorum. But if there's 5 of you, if George sends you an email and you don't talk back to George, but you send Tim the email, now the 3 of you have been involved in this receiving information, and that's a serial meeting. So, can't do it. And it doesn't have to be an email, it can be a conversation. There's 5 of you on a board, you run into one person at the co-op and you talk about, I'm really that policy you've got on extra high bills, I'm not satisfied with our conversation about it. Let's bring it up again at the next meeting. Okay. If there's 5 of you, 2 of you can say that. But then you can't say it to another member of the board, or if you've conducted a serial meeting where now 3 of you have officially made a decision that the board has the authority to make, but you didn't do it in a regular meeting.
And that doesn't apply to us because we've already violated it if any 2 of
Yes,
us.
if 2 of you do it, you've already violated it. Interviews, quorum present, that's not, that we're parsing now.
Email,
Not a meeting, they say, because written communication is not a meeting. That's one person, one opinion. Now look at the league is saying, don't rely on that opinion because it doesn't actually, it's not enforceable in every venue.
Interesting.
This is what they say.
I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Serial email communication. One way does not, except for when you've got a board of 3 people. And now you've actually, one way still is a quorum. So,
And again, that is applying to a business of this board.
Yes.
If I wanted to email Tim about, I don't know, a community garden we were working on, that's fine?
great.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to talk about the water bill for the community garden? You've
No.
crossed into gray area.
Right. Okay.
So, here's what the league recommends. Caution. It's easy to use caution here because we don't really know all the time where you've crossed the line, and we don't have to get anywhere near it. So, don't use your phone, email, or other electronic technology to communicate if a quorum is involved. That means any 2 of you do not use electronic communication to talk about business of the commission. Or have any back and forth conversations about business of the commission. Social media. Any of you social media users? This says, limited to exchanges with all members of the general public. So if you want to broadcast your opinion to everybody, potentially other people can hear and see that, right? Like other members of the board. And so you've now posted, we did this at the meeting and here's how I feel about it. And other people that are on the board can see it. Well, now they're saying it's not, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. It's not a violation if it's with all members of the general public can see it and you're not communicating back and forth. So even though a quorum received the information because it was generally available to everyone, then it's not a violation. My recommendation, don't
Yeah.
post anything other than factual retellings of what happened at meetings. Don't talk about opinions or policy making or anything else on social media, unless you want to do it as a board with a board account. Okay, interactive television. This is a good one. You don't have to worry about this because none of you are not going to be present, but it turns out we can do people interactive television as long as the place that you are at, not here, is open to the public. So you're on vacation, you want to participate in a meeting. I hope you don't, by the way, but if for some reason you do, you can do this through interactive television, Skype, or something else, as long as where you're at is open to the public and that everybody is able to hear and see everything that's going on in the meeting. This has not always been the case, and at least one of you has to be here
Right.
while the meeting's going on. We've not done any of these. But I'm going to skip ahead to the fun part. I'm afraid that was a violation.
No.
Not a violation,
Not a violation.
because
It did comply.
their meeting room was open to the public, so they're good. Okay, so that's everything you ever need to know about the open meeting law. A quick refresher. Super important stuff. Should we move
Okay.
on to the next?
Yes, I've absorbed that.
Well, just to clarify that if there's an issue that we think individually that we want to bring to the other members, that it should always go through Mike. So to request any kind of, communication would go through Mike, who would then do whatever he needs to do to further that.
If you send it to me the day before the meeting, I won't be able to do whatever I need to do.
Well,
So-
you'll do what you can do.
I'll
which
do
is-
what I
which-
did,
which-
which is say,
You can't put that.
these topics, someone requested these topics be on the agenda, so everybody's aware.
Yeah.
That much I can do. To be able to actually get anywhere on some of them is a little harder, because we didn't have any time to prepare. And more importantly, nobody else did either, and that's the point you were making, Tim, is if we send this agenda out on Friday with the intention that you've got the whole weekend and a couple of days of the week to read over any materials that are in here. But not only you, anybody else in the public who gets a chance to decide, do I want to go to that meeting or do I want to watch that meeting? And so if we bring things up at the end, and we do this, right, it happens regularly because things just come up. But if we try to hold to a schedule, what we would recommend and what we tell most people when they want to add things to our agenda is the week before, like Wednesday, is when we want something to be able to put in the packet. And that gives us a little bit of time to make sure that there's not any obvious missing pieces or something that we're going to need to track down or things we want to add to it.
Makes sense.
Okay, good question,
Slow and
Tim.
deliberate.
And in my defense, I would note that of the 4 things that I suggested we talk about today, 2 of those were sent to you, more than a week ago, and could have been put on the agenda. The night sky idea and the accidental water discharge policy.
I'm wondering if we could put.
That was
some-
my original email that was probably ill-advised.
Oh, yeah, that. Sure could have. This
Okay.
meeting didn't exist then. And I tried to make that disappear in my mind, that
Okay.
whole conversation.
All right.
But I'm wondering if these kind of items that George has wanted to add to the agenda, if there was a provision on the agenda to just have commissioners make a report, would that be an opportunity where he could raise that question? Not that we take any action, but that he could say that, you know, the Evalyn Larson issue I'm still concerned about. I'm wondering if we can bring that back for further discussion. And that would be an appropriate time to do something like that, is to bring that forward to the full commission at a meeting when the public can see that we're having that conversation and trying to put it on a future meeting for consideration. Same with the other items that, if you're not asking for any kind of action, and you just wanted to, I don't know, make a statement or do something.
Bring up a
Would
topic.
that be appropriate for him to do if we just gave an opportunity for commissioners to have an opportunity, a time to speak their piece or whatever?
I mean, you have that opportunity, right? This is your meeting, this is your agenda, you get to decide what goes on the agenda. So
what
anytime you're here, you can say, I'd like these things to be put on our work plan or our agenda, and, you know, are you willing to do that, other board members?
So what you're saying though is that, like, any of us could bring up anything and say, let's discuss this at our next meeting.
You can discuss it now if you want. You can take action now if you want. You get to decide whether that seems appropriate or if it doesn't.
But I agree
Michael-
with Tim, probably better not to take action.
Right.
Well, yeah, and my thought is, like, you know, like the night sky, you know, since Brian was here at our last meeting, and that information was sent to the city council, or at least, you know, brought before the council. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be, you know, out of the ordinary for me to give a report back that said, okay, yeah, the council received this. This is what the, you know, decision, or how that was received, or what
Yeah,
they
actually, I'd
decided
like
to
to
do.
hear, and I'd like to hear about the climate action plan too.
Oh, yeah, well,
Even though I was there, but
yeah.
yeah, that sort of thing. So I don't know, what's the better way to handle it? To have a kind of a catch-all at the end of the meeting, or to do it like I just did it and add it to the agenda?
Well, it depends on what your intention is. One of the things I like about doing it at the meeting is then you're all together discussing what your agenda should be, rather than each of you individually setting your own agendas and putting it on a list. And that, you know, you don't have to, George asked, and the other two of you could have said, I don't want that on the agenda. Like, that's okay. That wouldn't have been a terrible thing, but having the conversation together in the setting of a meeting, I think that's just a good way to act as a board, because it's your, you know, you share the responsibility to put this agenda together. Alternatively, putting a topic for conversation on the agenda, but there's no background information about it, I don't think is a recipe for success either. Like, if there's nothing for somebody to think about or chew on or look at, you can't get very far in that meeting anyway. So there really wouldn't have been any difference between you coming here today and saying, I'd like to talk about these 4 things, and me sending an email out saying, George would like to talk about these 4 things.
Right, no, the ideally it gets on the agenda and goes out with the packet a week before.
And you know, that doesn't mean on Wednesday you say, boy, I'd really like to talk about figuring out how we're going to, what's our strategy for dealing with the climate action plan. I mean, that is a massive, massive conversation and topic. That needs some work before you have anything to even think about, really. What's in the climate action plan that is topics that you think are relevant or that you're interested in or that you want to work on? If you said, you know, I spent 15 hours looking through the climate action plan and I've got a list of 5 of these things that I think we should look at, and here's, you know, the 2 that are most relevant. That kind of analysis up front sets it up for a conversation where I think the board can be more successful. Or if the board just says, you know what, we need to figure out what our strategy is to address the climate action plan. Okay, well, that's kind of the end of that conversation. There's not much else to do until somebody's dug into it and figured out.
Kind of has something to go off of.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, are you suggesting that we, just like every meeting, we add commissioners' reports at the end.
I think if you put it on there, then there's an expectation from the public that commissioners might give a report. And, I mean, we do it at the council meetings, and sometimes councilors have a report on activities or meetings or communications that they've had since previous meeting. Sometimes they don't. So if there's something relevant and important to bring up, yeah, that'd be the time to do it.
Previous city councilors, recent previous city councilor, had the audacity to suggest they should write their reports and have that included in the packet. Of course, no one did that, but I think there's a lot of merit to that idea. If it's important enough to say, it's important enough to put a little effort into preparing it prior to the meeting. Otherwise, it's just a time for everybody to list their goings-ons that people may or may not want to listen to.
So,
Well-
there you are.
There
Okay.
we are.
I mean, I'm happy to report on something if I know what I'm supposed to be reporting on. You know?
There's no supposed to.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's leave that for now and just go on to these other three things that I had brought up. Tim, if you think about that for the next meeting, if you'd like to add that, I certainly wouldn't mind kind of having that structure within our meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable way for us to bring forward, issues or concerns or, any questions where we might want the commission to consider, discussion or even some kind of action in the future.
Okay. Do you have any problem with that, Ann?
Great.
I would like to do that as well.
Great. Can I make one more request of you?
Yes.
I think adding a little rigor to your creating of your agenda beyond that step
Yes.
is going to be important.
Yes, and I heard that too. I see those as kind of separate things.
Yes and no. Like, if we don't do that step, then what's going to happen is the agenda is current events 100% of the time. And you have to prioritize at some point the things that are important and worth spending your time on, which means there's some things that aren't. And if every meeting there's 3 things added to the agenda, when do we put it all in a pile and prioritize it? And starting with some kind of baseline of this is the work we want to spend our time on over the course of a year would help you then decide, okay, do I bring this up in place of something that we already said was important, or...
Well, and also recognizing that when we have our meetings on the first Wednesday, we also have a scheduled planning commission meeting at 4 o'clock. So we have kind of a set time limit for our meeting based on the fact that the next group is coming in. And
Which you can change your schedule. if
we
you
could,
need to.
but we'd have to have some conscious thought that our meetings are going to go longer than that hour and make that adjustment. Now I think we've had the general assumption that we'll be done in an hour, and the planning commission will come in and have that meeting.
Okay, point taken.
I mean, I can certainly give a report on 2 of those items, the night sky and the climate action plan. And then if there's anything that you want to add to that, I mean, you were there for the climate action plan, and you'll understand kind of where we went with the night sky conversation, which really was not a conversation. It was my report of our recommendation from the Public Utilities Commission to the council during my councilor report, which was at the very end of the meeting after a very lengthy
Long
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
So I know that there were a number of people that had showed up earlier that had given some comments to the council about their concerns about the dark sky initiative, and those comments were heard, but at this point the council hasn't taken the dark skies initiative up, other than to recognize that it was brought before the PUC, and we did offer support for for that initiative. So when that might get put on the agenda, our schedule, our June schedule of meetings is packed with a lot of stuff. And so we had a 3-hour meeting last week, and even some of the stuff that was on the agenda, which are important items, were not discussed. You know, and maybe the City Hall liquor store didn't get included in the discussion because we felt at 9:30 it was not
Yeah.
appropriate to take up that conversation, and that's such a major, important issue that, you know, we need to be a little fresher after 3 hours of.
Yeah, that was a long one.
Yeah.
My only thought on that was that I kind of realized that the two lighting situations that Brian mentioned were the hospital and the Holiday, and both of those received SIMPA rebates. And it kind of, it made me realize that we should communicate with the SIMPA rebate guy, who used to be Keith Butcher and is now somebody else, and I haven't figured out who it is yet. And we should make that a part of their job, is if they're giving out rebates for lighting, we should say that dark sky is an important issue here. And, you know, we want that consideration taken into account. And I will put that on my to-do list to do that, and I will report back to you next meeting.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just kind of in defense of the rebate program, I mean, there's nothing in the rebate program that, you know, talks about those concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really,
Apparently not.
it's an energy efficiency, you know,
Yeah.
issue, and it's not a light color or temperature.
But we want to change that.
Well, that's right. I mean,
Yes.
that's the conversation that we had. You know, the council hasn't necessarily decided to take that up yet, but.
Well, SIPA operates it, but it's your rebate program,
Yeah.
and you can provide them that feedback. Although I would recommend that you do that through board action, that you set that as your policy, rather than, George, you just decide and then go tell them.
Oh, okay. Well, I would make a motion that that's our board policy, that the SIMPA rebate consider night sky initiative compliance in their lighting rebate program.
Second.
Is that kind of what you were thinking, Mike?
Yep, that's it exactly.
Further discussion?
Well, again, just my concern about bringing up an item like this that's not on the agenda.
Oh,
and
damn.
not giving the public an opportunity to weigh in or offer any comments if they so chose to want to do that. And I mean, I think this is the kind of issue that can create, I don't know, I mean, create conflict. And, you know,
I'm
if we
happy
held-
to
if we
wait
held-
till next
If we
month.
held off till the next meeting, I mean, think that then we give everybody an opportunity to participate.
Yeah.
and-
So let's put that on the agenda for next month.
Yep. You got that, Mike?
Next
You withdrawing
month.
your motion then?
Yes.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. That's all withdrawn. And we're going to talk about smart meters in July?
Opt-out policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm concerned that we stop putting that off because people are,
More and more,
yeah.
yeah,
It's happening.
information.
And I mean, I
Back to
think
us.
people are getting the feeling that we're not dealing with it. So,
Which people?
the people that have emailed me about their concerns about smart meters.
I mean, they don't have one though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But they keep stating that
They
their
don't want one.
unwillingness to participate.
Right. And they're not participating.
Okay. Yeah, and then the climate action plan, timeline for that is the council's going to revisit that in June, late June?
Did we actually set the meeting? I thought we were maybe talking about the July meeting, but I don't, it might have been the June meeting.
It was one of those
There
two.
was back and forth. The conversation
Yeah.
was that there were council members that wanted more time to go back to look at the public comments that were received. Patrick was going to restructure those comments so they could be viewed as those that were from PUC customers and those outside of the,
You should have received that.
oh, Well, I don't know if I have.
I don't think I did.
No, I don't,
Just-
maybe I.
Just the
no,
council.
Well,
council.
maybe I
Oh,
did.
okay.
You know, I've been busy the last couple of days, so I haven't really paid much attention to my emails, so.
And my only point on that for this group is that once the council does approve the climate action plan, if they do, you know, I would like for this group to consider a working session to go through that plan, kind of figure out which items in there we really want to push forward. So kind of just put that on the horizon.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was important after Shane had been to the council, 6 weeks ago or whatever, and brought it back for consideration again, that it not just be indefinitely put off, that it be brought back to the council, you know, at some reasonable time, so that everybody knew that there was going to be action
Yeah.
of some sort taken. You know, just by default, it wasn't really just going to fall by the wayside.
Well, I hope not.
Well, yeah, but, you know, sometimes when things get set aside, you know, they get set aside, and, you know, especially when you have a lot of other things going on, you
You do.
you know, lose track. And I didn't want the climate action plan to fall into that category. So my hope is that, you know, we'll see the council take action, whether it's the last meeting in June, first meeting in July,
Yeah.
you know, whenever that happens.
Okay. Well, anything else? Thank you, Mike, for the presentation, and we're adjourned.
We are. 3 minutes to spare.
Yeah, quick turnaround.
My seat's already warmed up.
Mine too.